Hi guys, it's Arthur from Arthur in the Void. Honestly, I think that name is perfect for me because I love that place. Um, but I made a list of goals for this year, and one of them was to finish reading the 3 books of occult philosophy by Cornelius Agrippa, and it is edited and annotated by Donald Tyson, and then it was translated by James Freak. We gonna get freaky. I'm sorry. Anyway, so the original reading that I did of, I think, the first 20 something pages I did at the beginning of 2025 when I was originally planning on going through this book club I was a part of for this book. It didn't work out. Dyslexia and executive dysfunction were kicking my ass, but um I'm here now and I'm on this new journey. I actually got a lot done last year just by going about doing things when I could do them. So, um, I will be posting a video soon about my goals for this year and get into that. But for now, I just wanted to film this to have a little intro at the beginning because my original intro for the video was, it was good, don't get me wrong, but I was, um, under the assumption that I was still femme presenting. And like, don't get me wrong, I still like femme presenting, but, um, I'm more in my masculine era. Er- Error, not era. Era. I'm. Oh my god. Gender fluid trans mask. That's what I'm trying to say. I like feminine expression, but I wish to look masculine. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy the reading and warning my commentary because I always have an opinion. Okay, so this is just to my understanding, but I have deleted and reinstalled or re-downloaded this several times. The preliminary text for the 3 books of occult philosophy are still called the 3 books of occult philosophy instead of preliminary text. Henry Cornelius Agrippa's life. Like, how am I not supposed to be confused, Tyson? Like, honestly. Because what person in their right mind is going to buy the same book twice? The same books twice. So here we go. Hernicus, Henry, Cornelius Agrippa von Nettesheim was born on September 14th, 1486, in the German city of Cologne, Cologne. His family, the von Nettesheims, were minor nobility who had served the royal house of Austria for generations. When Agrippa was born, his father was engaged in the service, and Agrippa himself mentions in his letter Episcopal 18 BK 6, Episcopal 21 BK 7. Those are in parentheses. Mentions in his letter that as a boy he aspired to do nothing higher than assist the new German Emperor Maximilian I, who had succeeded his father, Emperor Frederick III. I see what they did there. In 1493, when Agrippa was 7, the name Agrippa was uncommon in those times. There were two possible explanations for it. Attalus Gelasius I'm going to spell this out. This is a name. Aulus, first name. Gellius, second name. Okay. And then in parentheses, it says Noctes space Atticae space 16.16 in parentheses. Okay. Says that the word Agrippa was coined by the Romans to signify a child born feet first and the difficulty experienced by the mother at such a birth. Oh, in other words, like, it's lucky for him to be alive. That's how I see that. It's lucky his mama's alive. Jesus. It was used this way by the Romans, and there is evidence that this usage was adopted in later times by the European scholars and nobility who were anxious to display their classic learning. The name may have been given to the infant von Nettesheim. I think that one sounds better, Nettesheim. For reference, the way it's spelled is Nettesheim, Nettesheim. That's how I'm going to say it. Just forgive me. Von Nettesheim, to commemorate the manner of his birth. The other possibility involves the city of Cologne, which arose on the site of the chief town of Ubii, called Oppidum, Oppidum. Okay. Parentheses, or Citivus Euborium, parentheses. The wife of the Emperor Claudius. And there's a little asterisk under here, under the text. It says, all letter references are to volume 2 of the Latin opera published at Lyons. Lyons. Agrippiana was born here. And in the year 51 caused a Roman colony to be established in the town, which was named Colonia Agrippiana. It's being spelled here now, Agrippina. Or Agrippinus. It's not spelled that way. It's spelled Agrippinensis. Anyway, in her honor. Oh. So I wonder if there was boy and girl versions of the name coined after the saying. The inhabitants were called the Agrippian, the Agrippinese, Nettesheim or Nettesheim, was a small hamlet about 25 miles southwest of Cologne. But it was Cologne that served as residence for the family von Nettesheim, when they were not actually present in the imperial court. Since it was the custom for names to indicate place of origin, Agrippa may have been given to stand for Cologne, the true family home. Okay, hold on, let me look at his name again. I know this is the English version of his name, but this doesn't really... Henry Cornelius Agrippa. What? Okay, maybe it explains further. Since it was custom for names to indicate place of origin, Agrippa may have been given to stand for Cologne, the true family home. Agrippa dropped the first and last parts of his name. I am almost inclined to say the German half, and in the writings refers to himself only as Cornelius Agrippa. So the C-O in Cornelius. Actually, it would be... Yeah, so I think they're indicating that the name Cornelius came from belonging to the city of Cologne. Also, don't come for my spellings or my pronunciations. I'm dyslexic. I'm just trying, okay? As a boy, Agrippa showed a precocious intellect. Precocious? Precocious. Intellect. And became the talk of the town when he refused to speak anything but Latin. His talent for languages was assisted by an unusual retentive memory. Retentive memory. It was likely that the studies of this son of a noble family, destined for the imperial court, were supervised, at least directly, by the Archbishop of Cologne. He himself confides in the letter, Epistle 23, BK1, all of that, from the Epistle to the BK1, in parentheses. Okay. That at a very early age he was possessed by curiosity concerning the mysteries. Me too. This interest in secret things may have been romantically heightened by the historical shadow of the great occult scholar and reputed master magician Albertus Magnus. Romantically heightened? As in, like, that was his man, or? Because he looks older than Cornelius. I mean... Like, are we talking man crush? We talking mentor? What you mean romantically? Albertus Magnus, who lived from 1193 to 1280. Wait. If Albert was born in 14... Oh, this motherfucker was dead before Cornelius was even born. Okay. Anyway, this guy who taught philosophy and was buried in Cologne. At Cologne. Oh. I. So how do I go to the next page with this thing? Oh, okay. He writes to Theodoricus. I'm gonna have to... What? Theodoricus? Theodoricus. Bishop of Cyrene. Cyrene? It's Cyrene. That one of the first books on magic he ever studied was Albertus Speculum. Speculum? Hold on. I gotta look this word up. Okay, that's exactly what I thought. Speculum is a metal or plastic instrument that is used to dilate an orifice or canal in the body to allow inspection. Uh-uh, 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 no. Okay, oh, come on. Got rid of my zoom in and everything. Studied by Albertus Speculum. Is that his name? Oh, that is so unfortunate. Unless he named the thing. Which, like, why would you name that after yourself? I don't know. It would have been easy for a bold and wealthy youth to gain possession of the forbidden grimoires of magic in such a great trading and scholastic center. On July 22nd, 1499, he enrolled in the Faculty of Arts at University of Cologne under Perturus. Okay. First name Petrus. Second name Capittis. Space DE space. Last name Dunnen. I didn't think I was going to be able to pronounce that, so okay. On March 14th, 1502, received his from context clues, I'm going to assume that this word means license in the arts. Licentiate in the arts. That's what it said. His other formal degrees regarded as uncertain but seem not improbable. Agrippa claimed to possess doctorates in canon and civil law, as well as medicine, but the exact times and places these were earned remains a matter for speculation. Okay. So was he a charlatan or a genius? That's what I want to know. Agrippa writes, Epistle 21 BK7 parentheses, that he served the Emperor Maximilian the first, as a secretary, then as a soldier. Man, Agrippa was eccentric, bro. He was doing so much. The events of the early period of his court life are obscured. He was the kind of youth likely to appeal to the intellectual and physical body, physically bold Maximilian. At the age of 20, he appears in the University of Paris, ostensibly as a student, but perhaps in reality as a diplomatic spy. An instrument for the ever-continuing inquiries Intrigues of the emperor. Dude, Agrippa was dope. Agrippa's language skills, his quick wit, and his undoubted loyalty made him a perfect choice for such a mission. While at Paris, Agrippa gathered around him Sorry, it's taken me 17 minutes just to get through the first 2 pages. It's one of the reasons I decided to read for this. This is a little drink break. Get yourself a drink if you haven't had any liquid today. That doesn't mean alcohol. Get yourself water. Hydrate. That's the word I'm looking for. Hydrate. Alrighty. Let's get back to it. Actually, funnily enough, it says that I'm on page 14, but I've only read 2 pages so far. Interesting. Okay. Agrippa's language skills, his quick wit, and his undoubted loyalty made him perfect choice for such a mission. While at Paris, Agrippa gathered around him, as he was often to do later in life, a group of scholars pursuing studies into the occult mysteries. It was among this band that the incredible scheme was hatched, which was so influential to his later life. One of his fellow students, the Spaniard Juan de Guarana, Okay, it shows the name and then it shows the Latinized form of the name. So I'm going to see if I can just show you. Okay, I cannot. That sometimes happens with technology, so I'm going to have to spell it. So it's Wanton, which is Juanetin space DE space Gerona. And then, like I said, the Latinized version of the name was Antonius Basicus de Cherona. That one is a little easier to say. Anyway, he had been driven out of the district of Tarragon by a local peasant revolt. What the hell he do? It was decided that he would be returned to power in Tarragon and would, out of gratitude, ally himself with Maximilian I against his own king, Ferdinand of Spain, in effect becoming a traitor. Scandalous. The full details of the plot cannot be known, and only with difficulty imagined. The politics of the period were unbelievably convoluted. The following account of the adventure from Morley's Life of Agrippa is conjectural, and no later biographer has been able to fix the geography of the affair with certainty. That sucks. Imagine writing a book and then scholars be like, yeah, no, this doesn't make any sense. We have no idea where any of this shit happened. Let's yank that. Agrippa wrote to a friend at court who heartily encouraged the inquiry, Epistle 4 BK 1, but is not clear whether the emperor himself knew of it. The heart of the scheme was a bold plan to seize the impregnable Black Fort Furturo Furturo and the Spanish word for black. So, yeah. Oh, Black Fort. Oh, okay. Okay. Which stood on a height overlooking the town of Tarragon. This was to be held until reinforcements arrived to quell the local Catalonian uprising. The fort could not be taken by a direct assault, but was to be seized through suffrage by a small band led by Agrippa and others. Agrippa was the mastermind and central mover of the entire affair. Just before the attempt, which took place in the summer of 1508, Agrippa had serious doubts about the worthiness of his fellow conspirators and the loyalty of the couriers of Maximilian, who were all too ready to throw one of their own to the wolves of fortune at the least sign of weakness. No, I read that right. It just doesn't make any sense. I think what he's saying is that they were ready to throw their own to the wolves so easily that he didn't trust them to be loyal to the emperor. That's what I'm getting. More distressing, perhaps, to a young man of spotless honor were the methods to be employed, quote, but with a profligate, profligate, conscience to wish to continue in such cruel devices, comma, which after all have more in them of crime than of high daring, comma, and for the sake of the rage of one ill-advised prince to expose ourselves to universal hatred, comma, would be utterly imperious and mad, end quotations. Why are old dudes so long-winded? Like, unnecessarily so. I have no idea what that means, but I'm gonna guess from context clues. He's talking about how it goes against his conscience, the way that they're acting in regards to the emperor. Episcopal 5 BK1. How did Agrippa and his small band of conspirators seize this impregnable fortress, erect it in the misty past by the Celts? It is tempting to speculate that magic was involved, since this was so much the center of Agrippa's intellectual life at the time. The taking of the fort probably shared at least one element in common with a stage illusion once the trick is known. The onlooker tends to hold in contempt for its simplicity. Kidnapping, bribery, lies. It is impossible to know the actions of the plan. Somehow Agrippa and his men gained complete command of the Black Fortress. Having captured the fort, it is not clear the conspirators had any idea of what to do with it. Agrippa was sent with a small force to garrison the house of Gerona at Villarodona, a small town in the province of Tarragon. Gerona himself felt for Barcelona to gain assistance, but on the road was captured. Gerona himself left for Barcelona to gain assistance, but on the road was captured by rebels. After many... How the hell do I go to next page? Oh, ow! That's so cool! FYI, I'm using the archive. Oh shoot, how did I... Okay. How do I... What? Give me just a moment. I am trying to figure this out. Okay, it took me a minute to figure this out because I really couldn't figure out what was wrong. Because the archive was on flip through mode, for some reason, I assume it's possibly because I'm using it on my phone instead of on a laptop. Anytime I would go and hit the next section of the area to flip the page, it would go all the way through the book. So he was captured on the road by rebels. After many days waiting anxiously without word for his return, Agrippa was informed of his capture and told that the house would soon be laid under siege. It was impossible to defend the house with so small a band against a large, determined force. Agrippa prudently decided to abandon it and move to an old stone tower 3 miles away, which was almost completely surrounded by water and much easier to fortify. Hardly was he well settled within the walls when the peasant army attacked it. But Agrippa had chosen well. The peasants settled doggedly. The peasants had settled doggedly in for a long siege, determined to capture the German, as they called Agrippa, blaming his black arts for the massacre of garrison of Fortress Black. Okay, sorry. I kept saying the Black Fort, but it's written as Fortress Black. It's not written as the Black Fort. It's written as Fortress Black, but in Spanish. Weeks passed. It was necessary to get a message out in order to make an escape across the marsh and the lake that lay behind the tower. But this was impossible by ordinary means. Agrippa hit upon the device disguising the son of the keeper of the tower as a leper. And so effective was this ruse, the boy was able to leave the tower and return with an answer from the Archbishop of Tarragon, who was opposed to the rebel cause. Without once being challenged in the dark of the night, the belligerent band descended the tower in the rear and waited until the morning of August 14th, 1508, when at 9 o'clock 2 fishing boats carried them to safety across the lake. To the peasants, this escape was so daring and unexpected, it must have appeared more than natural. It nurtured the legend of Agrippa's unholy power, which at the time was only beginning to take root. That's so funny. A demoralized Agrippa seems to have washed his hands once and for all of both of the still unresolved intrigue in Tarragon and all political machinations in general. After a stay of 9 or 10 days in the safety of the abbey on August 24th, 1508, he set out to travel and see more of the world. while at the same time seeking news of his scattered associates. He was in no hurry to return to the court of Maximilian. Indeed, his opinion of court service never recovered from the disillusioning effect of the Tarragon enterprise. He traveled first to Barcelona, then to Valentina, where he met the astrologer Calpurnius Saracenius, Saracenus, a disciple of Zacchaeus. Selling his horses, he sailed to Italy, stopping at the Balearic Islands and Sardinia. Then Naples. From Naples, he took ship to France. All the way he continued to write letters and make inquiries Inquiries. I know how to say this word, I just can't. About the fate of the members of his Paris circle. At Avignon, Avignon, he was forced to pause for a time to earn money, his travels having exhausted his financial resources. In a letter, he expressed his wish to draw once again his companions from Paris around him. Nothing now remains but that after so many dangers we insist upon a meeting of our brother combatants, and absolve ourselves from the oaths of our confederacy, that we may recover our old state of fellowship and have it unmolested. I'm sorry, what? I mean, if molested means two horrible things or annoy someone, I feel like it means unblock it, like no blockade, like unblocked, like not to be difficult. I'm not sure. Epistle 9 BK1. There can be little doubt that the Paris circle was more than just a political marriage of convenience. It was an occult brotherhood of young men drawn around Agrippa by his knowledge and enthusiasm for the mysteries of magic and religion. Although the term, oh hell no, I can't say that. ROSICRUCIANISM. That's in quotations. Has no meaning before its appearance in the pamphlet published in Kassel, German in 1614. Agrippa's group of aspirants might be looked upon as a prototype for his movement. Magic for Agrippa was the highest and most sacred of disciplines, capable of transforming the soul. He would certainly have communicated his belief to his followers and would never have tolerated anything less than reverence towards the study of the magical arts. This was a time of intense debate and study of the mysteries for Agrippa. Even when his friends could not be with him, they referred others with similar interests as potential members of the brotherhood. The bearer of these letters writes one friend to Agrippa, is a German native of Nuremberg, but dwelling at Lyons, Lyons, and he is a curious inquirer after hidden mysteries, a free man restrained by no fetters, who impelled by one, or I know not what rumor concerning you desires to sound your depths. Epistle 11 BK1. When he was financially able, Agrippa rode to Lyons, where his friends awaited him, and continued his studies, which at the time probably centered on the learning of Hebrew and Kabbalah from the works of Jonas. His last name is Reuchlin. Okay. De Verbo Mirifico. Mirifico. Published in Germany in 1494. The Reuchlin's Hebrew Grammar and Dictionary, published in 1506. The name was more than twice, so I had to look it up. The internet says it's a German name. It's Reuchlin. That you pronounce it Reuchlin. So, and Reuchlin's Hebrew Grammar and Dictionary, published in 1506. Reuchlin had an enormous influence at the time on such minds as Erasmus and Luther. His writings set the philosophical tone of the Reformation. At age 23, did we go back in time here, or was he a teenager during all that? Did I miss something? Agrippa was revealing in the first golden flush of his intellectual maturity. Was he a child soldier? What? I feel like we're going back in time here. Right? At the age of 23, Agrippa was revealing in the first golden flush of his intellectual maturity. He had already gathered the notes for his occult philosophy, filled to overflowing with his wisdom of Reuchlin. He decided to give a series of lectures on the Mirific word in the summer of 1509 at the University of Dole. Wait, if it's the 1500s and he was born in the 1400s. Yeah, it would make sense that he's only in his 20s. Dude, he has done so much! Holy shit. I wonder how old he was when he was a soldier. And to be trusted with, like, spying? Talk about one smart kid. The lectures were delivered free of charge to the general public in honor of Princess Margaret, the daughter of the Emperor of Maximilian I. She was then 29 years old and had been appointed by her father governor over the Netherlands, Burgundy, and Chaurelis, making her mistress of Dole. The princess was renowned for her patronage of learning, and more importantly, from Agrippa's point of view, for her generosity towards the arts and letters. Hold on. Agrippa found it prudent to open the lectures with the panegyric, Panegyric, on Margaret herself. A friend made certain that the copy of the tribute found its way to Margaret's court. Although Agrippa could not have known it, this was the most promising and perhaps the happiest time of his life. His lectures met with universal acclaim. The universities conferred upon him a professorship of theology and voted him a stipend. Men traveled from distant places merely to converse with him about the arcane subjects. To cement the favor of Princess Margaret, Agrippa wrote in 1509, De nobilite e parcel lentina feminae sexus. The nobility of the female sex and the superiority of women over men. Okay, I'm starting to like him. Okay, calm down. Anyway, this contains sentiments that would endear Agrippa to the feminists of the present century. And then under it, there's this little note. The tyranny of men prevailing over divine right and the laws of nature slays by the law the liberty of women, abolishes it by using, and custom extinguishes it for education for women as soon as she is born, is from her earliest years detained at home. In idleness, and as if destitute of capacity for her higher occupations, is permitted to conceive of nothing beyond needle and thread. Then, when she has attained years of puberty, she is delivered over to the jealous empire of a man, or shut up forever in a shop of vestals. The law also forbids her to fill public offices. No prudence entitles her to plead in open court. Okay, I just gotta say this. Agrippa is dope. Okay, like he to me he sounds like he was pretty progressive for his time. Like he was like making moves, you know? Like I like him a lot so far. Also, in 1509 and early 1510, Agrippa wrote the first draft of the 3 books of occult philosophy, which he sent off to be read and criticized by the abbot Janus Trithemius. Oh, I did good with that one. Then abbot of St. James at Würzburg, formerly abbot of Benedictine monastery of St. Martin at Soppenheim or Sappenheim. In October of 1506, he had become head of the abbey of St. James at Würzburg. I thought abbeys were only for monks. According to Henry Morley, Agrippa became acquainted with Trithemius. Thereupon his return from Spain, Morley, it says parentheses Morley 1 colon 214 parentheses, of the occult philosophy, Francis A. Yates writes, it was dedicated to Trithemius, who was undoubtedly an important influence on Agrippa's study. Yates, 1983, 38. Although I have no way of proving it based on the information I have been able to collect concerning the life of Agrippa. I believe this is an understatement. The tone of the letters, oh, by the way, this is the Tyson translation. Right? I do believe so. I believe this is the Tyson translation. Although I have no way of proving blah blah blah, I believe it is an understatement. The tone of the letters between the abbot and Agrippa, the nature of Trithemius' own writings, the fact that he left some of those writings to Agrippa after he died, the harmony that existed between the minds of the two men, all lead me to believe that Trithymius was Agrippa's mystical master and teacher, particularly in the branch of magic dealing with spirit evocation. It would not suppose me to learn that the two men had corresponded and even met along before 1508, perhaps even when Agrippa was a youth living in Cologne. When his early interest in magic began to quicken, it would have been natural for him to seek out the acknowledged master of his art at Spanheim. It must be stressed that all this is only conjecture on my part. It was about this time that Agrippa fortunes were to take a serious turn for the worst. Oh no. Had he been less honest and noble of mind, he might have anticipated it. What happened? The chief of France, of Francian monks in Burgundy, named John Cathalinte, has chosen to deliver the Linnet sermons of 1510 before Princess Margaret and Ghent. Ghent. He took at his subject the lectures of Reuchlin, delivered at Dole, and attacked both the ideas expressed and their enthusiastic young exponent as impetus? Oh no, Margaret was strongly Christian. Whatever good opinion she may have formed at a distance about Agrippa was poisoned. Okay, fuck this John guy. In that century, it was always dangerous to champion the Jews before the conservative church, which still blamed them for the crucifixion of Christ. That is a long time to hold a grudge, my guy. What the fuck? Whether Margaret had read the Panegyric, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Panegyric, on her is uncertain. It was sent to her court, but this does not mean she saw it. She had not yet read Agrippa's treatise on the preeminence of women, which would not be published until 1532. Oh my God. Its publication was delayed so long because of the unfavorable opinion created in Margaret's mind towards Agrippa by the Francian monk. Screw that guy. He had been able to read it. The bold ideas it contained might have softened her hostility. But this was not to be. Wait. So this guy read his feminist book and was like, no. And then just straight up didn't tell her about it? Specifically to alter her opinion against Agrippa. Get out of my face, John. Get out of my face. Are you serious? The audacity. But this was not to be. Okay. Agrippa had lost, at least for the present, the one patron he had earnestly sought above all others. Unwillingly, he was compelled to turn away from the path of a scholar and return once again to that of a diplomat in the court of Maximilian. Late in the summer or early in the autumn of 1510, he was sent as an ambassador to the court of Henry VIII in London. VIII. Yeah, the 8th. Henry VIII in London. Agrippa lodged in the town of Steffy, near London, at the house of Dean Colet, Dean of St. Paul's. Here, when not distracted by court duties, which seem to have consisted of masking, torment displays, wrestling, and other arguments, he found a conjugal spirit and engaged in a serious study of the epistles of St. Paul under the guidance of the good Dean. It was during this period, I believe, that Agrippa began to temper his enthusiasm for magic and occult studies with a growing fervor for the truth of Christianity. Ugh. What? He had never been lacking in piety, but the glamour of magic had made the virtues of his own faith seem pale by comparison. Now, but the example of a genuine Christian, Dean Colet, consistently before him, Agrippa began to reassess the teachings of Christ. Huh? Oh, yeah. So this was during the time where the Roman Empire was. Okay, okay. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I think occultism was accepted in the Christian community back then. I'm not sure. I mean, like, you do you, boo. I don't understand it, but okay. The passion of his nature provoked, at least for a short time, a revulsion against the pagan beliefs he had not long before regarded as the most sacred. Rude. Rude. This ambivalence between Christian and pagan teachings persisted throughout the rest of his life. During his visit to England, he must have traveled to Stonehenge or some other Neolithic site, as he mentions heaps of stones, which I saw in England, put together by incredible art. Occult Philosophy 2.1. That's in parentheses. At the house of Dean Colet, he wrote an expostulation. Expostulation on the condemnation of his exposition on the mirific word, addressing it to John Catalinct, presumably to little effect. It was not likely to engender by its tone a forgiving frame of mind in the Francian monk, as this belief extract shows. But you, to whom I was utterly unknown, who were never present at one lecture and never heard me elsewhere speaking privately about these things, who never, so far as I know, have seen me, yet have dared to utter against me an unjust opinion, and had better been omitted, and might have been, and ought to have been, not only because it is most false, but also because it is not fixed that a religious man should disseminate among most serious and sacred Christian congregations such calumnies Okay, see, now you're speaking in words I don't understand. Such calumnies and contralimiums. Okay, so congregations such as CALUMNIES and CONTUMELICS. And they altogether misbecome the divine office of a preacher, quoted by Morley. Go off, King. He's still salty. He's still petty. We love a petty king. Love that. I love that. I love that for him. There is some reason to believe that Agrippa was on a secret mission while in England. He speaks of his most secret purpose. Parentheses, opera 2.596, parentheses. This is not unlikely given the constant inquiries of Maximilian. Morley speculates that it was Agrippa's task to sow the seeds of dispute in the mind of King Henry against Pope Julius II. Morley, this is in parentheses again, Morley 1:229. But it seems to me that Maximilian was not so naive as to believe that Henry could be swayed by the words of a young German diplomat in so serious a manner, unless Maximilian expected Agrippa to use the black arts to move the mind of the king. In 1511, Agrippa returned to Cologne. Hold on. Returned to Cologne. Where the hell? Okay. In 1511, Agrippa returned to Cologne. He delivers a series of lectures called Quodlibretal, Quodlibetal, on various subjects of divinity at Cologne University. Indicating that his heart was still bent on scholastic pursuits. I mean, me too, bro. Me too. I totally get that. About this time, the fury of Orthodox theologians against how do you say this name again? Reuchlin and the Jews was reaching its fanatic peak in Cologne. Leave them alone, dude. Leave them alone. See, that doesn't make sense to me. Because, like, in Christianity, like in the Bible, yes, the Jews persecuted him, but it was the Romans that crucified him based on the words of the Jews. So why aren't you mad at the Romans too? Like, get over yourself. Jewish books were being gathered up and burned in wholesale lots. Oh, because that makes sense. Let's burn history. Fucking fascists. Sorry. Sorry. In wholesale lots. Agrippa would certainly have found much matter for lively debate. It is therefore surprising that in the spring or early summer of 1511 he enters military service. Dude, again? He may be that honor compelled him to offer his sword, or perhaps he had some other plan. He writes to a friend, Epistle 30, BK1. Parentheses, it's in parentheses. About the possibility of securing for them both professorships at the Italian University of Pava. For the present, this remained an idle dream. It was Captain Agrippa's immediate task to convey 1,000 gold pieces from Trent to the military camp of Maximilian at Verona. This he accomplished without incident. Of his other military services in the Italian wars, little is certain, save that Agrippa was a very unhappy soldier. He writes, I have for several years, by the emperor's command and by my calling a soldier, I followed the camp of the emperor and the French king in many conflicts, gave no sluggish help. Before my face went death. Yeah, it says death. And I followed the minstrel of death. My right hand soaked in blood, my left dividing spoil. My belly was filled with prey, and the way of my feet was over corpses of the slain. So I was made forgetful of my innermost honor, and wrapped around 15-fold in Tartarian shade. Damn. Episcopal 19 BK2. Parentheses. I'm gonna stop saying parentheses because if I say Episcopal, it's probably got parentheses around it. In 1511, or perhaps the year following, he received his knighthood in the field. It is not known what service or feat of arms drew this reward. Wars at this time were seasonal affairs. In late summer of 1511, Agrippa was chosen to act as a theologist at the Council of Pisa, conveyed by King Louis the 12th of France and Emperor Maximilian I of Germany, ostensibly to reform ecclesiastical abuses, but really to defy the authority of Pope Julius II. Agrippa was a natural choice to represent Germany since he was in Italy, not a popular travel destination for the German bishops in that war year. So, have I misunderstood? Did he work for the emperor in Germany? Or was he a German working for the emperor in Rome? I gotta look this up. Give me a second. Okay, so it mentioned Austria earlier. That makes sense. I understand the context now. I was a little confused. So, no, Emperor Maximilian I was not a Roman emperor. He was the Holy Roman Emperor. He did not live in Rome. He was born and lived in Austria. He never even traveled to Rome for his papal coronation. Papal? PayPal? PAPAL. Which was traditionally required for Holy Roman emperors. Maximilian I was alive from 1459 to 1519. Okay. That makes a lot more sense because I was really confused. Okay. and well known. Okay, so it says Agrippa was a natural choice to represent Germany since he was in Italy. Not a popular travel destination for the German British shops or bishops, for the German bishops in that war year, and well known as a skilled orator. Along with all the others who attended the council, he risked excommunication. He took advantage of the occasion to lecture on Plato at the University of Pisa. When the council was moved to Milan, Agrippa returned to military service, not much discomforted by the order of excommunication declared against him by his fellow council members. The fortress of Pope Julius brightened toward the end of 1511, and Maximilian found it expedient to abandon Louis and to throw in with Henry VIII, who was at the time preparing to invade France. Oh my God. How many pages is just like the preliminary, dude? Oh, Jesus. Where was I? Agrippa refused to leave the soldiers who had fought beside him so many months. He stayed in Italy with a small force of German soldiers and battled with the French against the Swiss and Vietnam armies of the Pope at Pava, awaiting for specific command from the emperor that he quit Italy before abandoning them. There was nothing traitorous in this decision. It was Maximilian who injured his honor, not Agrippa. Around the 1st of July, 1512, Agrippa was taken prisoner near Pava by the Swiss, along with a force of 300 German soldiers. He obtained his freedom, perhaps with the help of his new patron, William Pelagius. I think it's Pelagius. Palaeologus. The Marquess of Monferrata. At the end of November, he formally attached himself to the service of the Marquess. Actually, no, Marquis. Of the Marquis. Marquess is the feminine pronunciation of the word. Which he could not do since the goals of the Marquis were then which he could do since the goals of the Marquis were in harmony with those of the Emperor Maximilian, and settled in Monferrata's chief town of Casale. In February 1513, when the aged Julius II died, the new Pope, Leo X, sent a letter to Agrippa through his secretary revoking his excommunication. Whoop whoop. I'm sorry, but my boy is in service to the Lord. It's funny. I'm sorry. Where was I? Military demands upon Agrippa were sporadic. He had been captain of a troop of soldiers under Maximilian Sforza, Sforza, the Duke of Milan. But there was a little fighting. For the next 2 years, he served his masters more in the capacity of diplomat than soldier. In the summer of 1515, with the blessing of his patron, Monferrata, Agrippa delivered a series of lectures on the Pomander of Hermes Trismegistus, Trismegistus at the University of Pava, of which the introductory oration alone has survived. According to Morley, these met with such applause that the university conferred upon him doctorates of divinity, law, and medicine. Okay. During this time in Pava, Agrippa seems to have married his first wife, a native to the town. Morley, who confuses the first with the second wife of Agrippa, says that she was a native to Guinevere, wed by Agrippa on his journey to Italy, from Italy to France in 1509. But Nuret, N-A-U-E-R-T, who presumably is in a position to know better, confidently states that the first wife of Agrippa, whom he does not name, was of a noble family of Pava, and that the earliest mention of marriage occurs in a letter dated November 24th, 1515. See Epistle 48, BK 1. Although not much is said of her, it is apparent that Agrippa loved her deeply. His happiness at this stage of his life can only be imagined, secure in a faithful patron, performing the work that he most loved, blessed with a loving wife and 2 children, a boy and a girl, with no immediate prospect of military service. It was a golden time. Why am I getting emotional? Bittersweet in its briefness. Why am I getting emotional? Agrippa would write of his wife, "I give innumerable thanks to the omnipotent God, who has joined me to a wife after my heart, a maiden noble and well-mannered, young, beautiful, who lives so much in harmony with all of my habits that never has a word of scolding dropped between us, and wherein I count myself happiest of all, however our affairs change, in prosperity and adversity, always alike kind to me, alike affable, consistent, most just in mind and sound in counsel, always self-possessed." Epistle 19, BK 2. Bro. Oh my God. I love this man. That's so sweet. I feel for him, man. Like, he deserves it, you know? He's been through so much. I need to pause. Give me a second. This next line pisses me off. Some men seemed destined never to secure a lasting peace and security. In the same year Agrippa was winning fame for his Pava lectures, Louis XII of France died. His successor, Francis I, invaded Milan. Once more, Agrippa was forced, against his will, to put on the mantle of a soldier in defense of his new master, Maximilian Sforza. Yeah, because Maximilian first died. Yeah, I read that when I was confused. This is such BS. Like, ridiculous. At the Battle of Marigiano, Maigano, which took place September 14th, 1515. The Swiss and Italian fortresses and the Italian forces of Maximilian Agrippa with them were routed by the French, and I don't know if this is the same word I saw earlier, but I think if I said Vietnam earlier and it wasn't Vietnam, apologies, because this word says Vietnam reinforcements. The power in Pava passed to the French. Agrippa found that he could no longer lecture at the university. His military pay ceased. The state of Agrippa's mind is clearly demonstrated by this letter. I'll read it in a second. I'm going to finish this. Okay. Either for our impropriety or through the usual influence of the celestial bodies, or by the providence of God, who governs all, so great a plague of arms or presilience of soldiers is everywhere raging, that one can scarcely live secure even in the hollows of the mountains. Whither, I ask, in these suspected times, shall I betake myself with my wife, son, and family? When home and household goods are gone from us at Pava, and we be despoiled of nearly all that we possess, except a few things that were rescued. My spirit is sore, and my heart is disturbed within me, because the enemy has persecuted my soul. Persecuted. And humbled my life to the dust. I have thought over my lost substance, the money spent, the stipend loss, our no income, the dearness of everything, and the future threatening worse evils than the present. I have praised the dead rather than the living, nor have I found one to console me. But turning back upon myself, I have reflected that wisdom is stronger than all, and have said, Lord, what am I that thou shouldest be mindful of me, or that thou shouldest visit me with mercy? Epistle 49, BK 1. Okay. To repay the Marquis of Montferrat for his continuing support during these dangerous, shifting political times, Agrippa dedicated to him 2 works, the Dialogue on Man and the Triple Way of Knowing God. The first has not survived. During 1516, he lived with his family at Cassel under the patronage of the Marquis, while his friends made strenuous efforts on his behalf to find him a place and an income. To occupy his time, he gave lectures in theology at the University of Turin. They may have centered on the epistles of St. Paul, to which Agrippa devoted so much study during his stay in England. Finally, in the summer of 1517, Agrippa joined the court of the Duke Savoy, Charles III, called the Gentle, who was half-brother to Philibert, the late husband of Margaret of Austria. Although he had no training or experience in practical medicine, he served as court physician, Montferrata, looks right to me, and close blood ties with Ducal House of Savoy. At the time, Germany and France were at peace. One cannot help thinking that given the crude state of medicine in the period, Agrippa, with his practical German mind and vast knowledge of natural magic, would have made a better physician than many trained upon the profession from childhood. In some respects, he resembles his contemporary Paracelsus, impatient with accepted platitudes, he sought to wrest living truth from the past with ancient texts and the future through experiment. But Agrippa had no love of leechcraft. It was necessity that drove him to represent himself as a healer. One of his friends took a dim view of his new appointment and wrote to express his misgivings in terms that proved all too prophetic of Agrippa's position in the court of Savoy. He says, "I do not praise it. You will be offered little pay and get it at the day of judgment. I have sent repeated letters to the governor of Grenoble by the hand of his own nephew, and I am hoping soon to get an answer, after which, if you permit me, I will arrange and settle everything. In the meantime, so manage with the Duke of Savoy as not to close your way to richer fortune." I think he was saying he was trying to get him a different job. Why did Agrippa not send word of his situation to his father or return to his family in Cologne? Pride kept him from writing. Having gone to Italy to make his fortune, he could not bear to return a beaten man begging for charity. Dude, I thought you were a Christian. What? What? You don't want to get charity, but that's like the whole thing? Like, what? I don't understand, dude. His friends and relatives at Cologne heard nothing from him during this time and naturally assumed that he had been killed in the Italian wars. Although Agrippa labored as a physician for the Duke of Savoy through the summer and into the fall of 1517, he was not paid anything. The Duke had yet to fix upon an appropriate wage. It may be assumed that Agrippa gained his bread by treating patients on the side and performing the work of a scholar, writing letters, drawing up legal documents, and so on. Towards the end of November, the Duke at last settled a figure on Agrippa's services. It was low. Agrippa not only declined to accept the office, but would not touch the back pay for months of service, and that was rightfully his. Fortunately, an opening had been found for him as an orator and advocate in the German town of Metz. Fortified by his good news, Agrippa was at last able to reconcile his pride and his shame and return to Cologne with his family to assure his parents that he was prospering. To his surprise, he discovered that they had been mourning his death at the hands of the French at Pava. See this? That's what I'm saying, dude. That's what I'm saying. After visiting with his family for several months, he went with his wife and son to take up his official duties at Metz. His daughter, who would have been only an infant, is not mentioned, but certainly accompanied them. Upon arrival, Agrippa presented himself before the magistrates of Metz. His brief speech to them with extols the town of Metz and explains his own background has been preserved. Also extant and 3 orientations. He later wrote while in his official position, "These are workmanlike but prosaic documents." No doubt Agrippa had more pleasure in writing a treatise on original sin, which he completed a few months after settling in Metz. In 1518, he probably also wrote his short work of geomancy during his stay at Metz. At least it was among his papers there. Around this time, a friend, Theodoric, I think it's Theodoric or Theodoric. I don't know. Theodoric, Bishop of Cyrene, 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 wrote asking Agrippa to suggest a prescription against the plague. The plague? The plague. It shows that he would have made a good... Wait, what? Again? Okay. He responded with a brief tract. Securest. Securest. Antidotes against the plague. It shows that he would have made a good physician. The best protection, he says, is to leave the city until the plague is over. If you cannot leave, your residence and clothing should be purified with the heat and smoke of a blazing fire. It is good to wash the hands and face often in vinegar and rose water. I mean, at the time, that sounds like a really good disinfectant method. And to suffumigate, Suffumigat, the house with rue beaten in vinegar, inhaling the vapor and allowing it to pass over the whole body and clothes. Many of the other remedies he gives would be worthless, but these few at least make some sense. Agrippa traveled from the Metz to Cologne in 1518, probably to be at the bedside of his ailing father. When he returned to the Metz, he received a letter from his mother informing him of his father's death. He was deeply moved. I was going to stop at this page, but I'm going to read a snippet from his letter that's shown. I grieve most vehemently, and find but a single solace for this grief, that we must yield to the divine ordinance. For I know that God bestows upon men gifts not indeed always pleasant, very often even of adversity, yet always to assist us here, or in the heavenly fatherland. For God acts in accordance with his own nature, his own essence, which is holy goodness. Therefore he ordains nothing but what is good, and salutary. Salutary. Nevertheless, such is my human nature. I vehemently grieve, and the depths are stirred within me. Epistle 19 BK2. I'm done for today. We stopped on page 22 technically. So, yeah. At least I did some good reading.